And a huge shout out to Spider Farmer. Spider Farmer's had a place in my garden for a number of years. One of my favorite lights is the SE5000. This light fits a 4x4 tent perfectly. If you're looking for a high quality light for a budget price, head on over to spider-farmer.com and check out an array of lights. Everything from the SE series to the SF series, you're going to find a light for your budget. If you check out the SE5000, you're going to look at about a $569 light. This is a light that's probably going to last you a very long time. It's full spectrum, it's dimmable, and it's going to fit that 4x4 tent exceptionally well. Use promo code PIGEONS420 to save yourself a few dollars off at checkout and to help support the show. A huge shout out again to Spider Farmer for helping to support today's show. Go on over and get yourself a new light today. This stream is also brought to you by AC Infinity. AC Infinity has got a quality name when it comes to products for your garden. Whether it's an inline fan or the Controller Pro 69, they've got you covered. They've got a controller that's going to communicate between all of their devices, from the humidifier to the clip-on fans, regulate everything accurately with the Controller Pro 69. If you go to acinfinity.com, use promo code PIGEONS420, you can get some quality equipment for a quality price. Get the equipment that your plants are going to need and grow some incredible dank. Thank you, AC Infinity.
Brandon,
Right.
I think we got it, man. The joys of trying to run a live show and have a guest is why I do this to myself. I have no idea. But man, Brandon, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you pulling up. This whole thing started because I seen In-House Genetics in the chat when I'm live, and it's been, honestly, I was flattered. I was just totally flattered to see you guys. I've heard so much about you guys from Rob and Chris, the community. I've seen your genetics grown by so many different people from my own community. And when I seen you in the chat, whether it was you or somebody from the team, I was 100% flattered. I was like, this is wicked. Thank you so much. I would love to have a sit-down conversation with you. So, Brandon, thank you for having a sit-down with me.
Well,
I appreciate it.
Oh, 100%. No, that's me. I appreciate that. But that's what we do is I see that Rob's in here, Rob from CLTV, ICANN, Chad, yourself. Like, what I like is I'm starting to see these podcasters and these people that are putting these content, and they're getting these people to, they're not just a matter of education, but the engagement from everybody. And it's really cool to see and watch over the years, watching those guys grow. Like, I just recently came across your videos a couple months ago, and I was watching Rob's video, which then it, basically suggested you onto the next one. And so that's how I came across Pigeons 420. But it's great content, for sure.
Bro, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. And, like, I've tuned into your content. And, of course, I started to tune into your content more because I seen you in the chat. And our community is so tight-knit that I feel like our communities overlap, too, in so many ways. Like, your people growing your genetics are in my community's growing your genetics. Like, they know who you are, your people know who I. It's inevitable. And honestly, the support doesn't always go both ways. I don't always see it. So really appreciate it.
I would say to that is what we have here is everybody's basically rallying around this plant, right? For whatever reason, for numerous reasons. Everybody has different reasons on why they grow. But the great part is that they're growing. So there's a community based around the plant. We have these divisions, obviously, and we have these, groups and forums and all that. But I do see cannabis and hemp as one huge, large community in itself. And it's very powerful. It just hasn't recognized how powerful it is. And what I mean by that is there's the power in numbers. So that's why back to where with you guys that I mentioned and the podcasters and these content creators, you guys are bringing a bunch of people into the fold that otherwise wouldn't be brought into. So what this ultimately translates into is cannabis turns into a lifestyle. and you know, in the way that forms is just through education and purpose, and the reason why people grow, partake, and you know, for numerous reasons, you know, and it's an evolution, because we all started somewhere, right? So you know, we started growing, you know, we started growing 20 years ago, right? But we didn't know the medicinal aspects 20 years ago. It was kind of a myth, or kind of like you heard like chatter. But over time, you start hearing more and more, and then you start honing a craft, you know?
Yeah. No, man, I totally get it. And I feel your passion. I've watched your videos. I watched a video you did with LMC, the Instagram video you did with them. You know, I love your passion for the plant. Before we go too far in, Brandon, a little bit about you, a little bit about in-house. How did you come about? Just a little introduction.
So, yeah, so real quick, the quick introduction is in-house is two people. We've always been growing together, and we started off in obviously the black market. Then when medical came, it turned into the gray market, and then eventual commercial market here and there, right? So it's been you know, back to the word evolution. So it's been step by step. So we've, you know, done a lot of great stuff over the years, and so what you got to do is you know, you start off as a grower, and then you start learning and understanding genetics, and then you start, you know, from there, then you start learning the, you know, the properties of that plant and why it makes it important.
Yeah. I honestly, I knew that you had a team. I didn't know that in-house was just two guys. You guys operate like you've got a whole crew behind you guys. You're doing incredible.
Well, technically, we sort of do, because as you can see over the years, is like we've never made it about us. So it was always about the people that tested for us, the people that grew, people that took a chance about the pack. Uh, so it's a true team effort. And so when you, it's really cool, because like the shows, you get to meet people, and they're like, oh, we grew your gear out, or I grew your gear out, da 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 da. And it's really cool, because they're excited because they had success, right? And that's why I think that, you know, the from a breeder to a grower, there should be a symbiotic relationship, because there's a two, you know, it's a two-way street there, right? You know, in order to, you know, have a great hunt, and pick your, you know, pick your favorite cultivar that you're going to ultimately run with and put in, say, production, whether you're a home grower or whether you're a commercial grower, you know.
Where does that passion come from? Like, have you been doing weed forever? Has it just been something part of you? And because you've got a
Yeah.
fire in you,
So
man. You got a fire. Where does it come from?
yeah, it's just that, well, it's challenging. So like any grower knows that the life skills that you learn from growing is amazing. So you learn discipline, you learn failure, you learn, you know, you learn success. You learn scheduling. There's so much stuff when it comes to growing that you learn, and just when you think you have it, the plant humbles you again, and then it's not like you're starting over, but it's like one of those things where you get setbacks, but it's how you in turn, you know, rebound from those setbacks. And every grower knows, like, you know, when they run into a problem, and when it's really dark, there's still light at the end of the tunnel. So it's just an, you know, ever evolving situation. But the passion and all that just comes from the excitement of the people. And like I tell people all the time, is like, the reason why we're here is because you're here. If you're not here, then we're not going to be here anymore, you know. And we feel, with the ever quick pace changing, and we have the respect of the community, that we felt that, you know, we couldn't stay silent on stuff, so we have to stand up and let our voice be heard. But also, we have a tremendous platform and a great following, and we lend that following, and or not that following, but we lend that platform or our audience to other people, so they could get their message by. Because, you know, as you can see, we have this, everything from Schedule 3 to you name it, coming our way, and it's really to, you know, take control of the plant again. And it's not necessarily something that we want to do, but we just know that morally and ethically we have to do that. And we've, you know, got a lot of heat at it, you know, from it in the beginning, because they were like, you know, politics doesn't belong in cannabis, and it's like, actually it does, because we're allowing people to make choices and decisions for us that don't know anything about this plant, you know. And that's what the sad part is, because by letting that go and not being vocal and active, this is where it's led us to, you know. And that's where that's where you just see a lot of people shifting, going down, and having problems and having issues, and especially in the commercial realm of everything, it's really hard for these, small operators to operate because they get this crushing regulation. And also too, regulation is good because it keeps people safe, but some of it is redundant. But also it allows these big money interests to push down on these smaller guys, where these smaller folks have spent life savings, and they've put their life work into it, just for this, the to be hindered by by politics, essentially, pay to play type of politics. We've seen it all across the country. I'm fortunate to get across the country and visit a lot of these growers. I get to, anytime I go to a state, I make a point to go to as many growers as I can, and just sit there and we'll just talk, and see what's going on with them. And it allows you to get a real good, like, finger on what's going on and what's really ailing people, and what their hurdles are. And one thing that it is you do have, a monopoly starting to form and take place, not just in the United States, but up north where you guys are at, up in Canada too.
Yeah, yeah, it's a constant battle. I'm constantly talking. Like, I personally love politics. It's something like I'm not a huge fan of government, but I'm a huge fan of politics. There's a big split between the both, in my opinion. Politics is what governs, or is really what guides and regulates, if you will. Not regulates, but it's essentially what keeps the masses in order, and then the government are the ones that just mess all that up. And so it's a common conversation, or a common denominator here, where I talk about politics, because I agree with you. The only way we can change the game is by having a conversation, by talking to people, by talking to growers, by talking to patients, by talking to people who don't agree with this plant, because that's the only way we're going to be able to change any kind of opinion, or at least spread awareness, is through one conversation at a time. And you're doing that. You're doing that.
Well,
go ahead.
it's what I'm doing is I'm learning stuff and researching stuff, and then just taking what I've learned and what I've come to understand and conveying it and giving it out to the masses. And then what it does is it gets fact checked, and then some people come back and go, well, "You're wrong on this." Then I got to look it back up, and I got to refine my point or whatnot. But it's it's constantly in motion, because what I'm doing is we're all in uncharted territory for the most part, because we're coming off of prohibition into legalization. Now, we can get into and excuse the puns, in the weeds of it, but it should have never been prohibition in the first place. It was all political in the first place on why it was, prohibited. Prohibition began, which the United States led that, and then every other country followed suit. And it just spurned from there. And then we had all the propaganda, and that's what we've had for generations is propaganda. Because that's why when you see the divide, there is like when you get into like the older generation down to the millennials, right? There's such a divide there, because that older, say, boomer generation has been lied to their whole life about weed, and then you have this new generation that's coming up that doesn't, didn't have to live through that, so they're seeing cannabis in a different lens, and then you have the people that are in between, like ourselves. But ultimately, it's one of those things where that's why I don't knock any new grower. I don't knock any old grower. I don't knock any grower for that, because I just like the fact that you're growing, not just plants, but you're growing yourself, and you're learning. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to right this ship and kind of get things going in the direction that we need it to serve everybody, is by education. And that all reverts back to people like yourself and ICANN and Rob and Luke and Chad, and just all these people that put in this hard work. Because I had a great conversation and meeting with Matt from ICANN when I was in Denver, and we talked a lot about this particular subject. And and it's just that it's one of those things that we're going to have to, at some point, not work directly together, but we're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to come together as a community, and also recognize the fact that we're all here for this plant, and this plant has brought us, a lot, and we need to step up and protect it with, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's a great conversation to be had. When it comes to in-house genetics, what's the story of in-house genetics? Where did you come from?
So
How did you get to where you are?
it's just everything is always comes back to like you want to be like when we started growing, you want to be the best at it. So we steered a lot of times we steered away from a lot of the genetics that were super popular at the moment, and went after like harder to grow strains, especially in the early years, like OG strains. Right? They would like especially old school OG strains would be hard, dense nuggets, and it would be looking really small in the bag, in the turkey bag, and didn't have like the Bubba's look. So we had to kind of you know grow it as phenomenal as possible and as and highest quality as possible, just so that way anytime somebody saw it, smelled it, and tasted it, they weren't going anywhere else. And obviously when you break it down, it all weighs out. It's just the way that the bud structure is. So then over the years, it's just always been quality in, quality out, and that's when from growing, starting in a we started in a basement, and then eventually to warehouses, and then my partner started really just going heavy in the genetics aspect of it, and was like, okay, well, let's obviously let's pop a bunch of seeds, and we're always hunting for the best phenos and paying crazy amounts back in the day for phenos, and just started amassing a huge library, and that has allowed us to kind of get in position to do a lot of out of the box kind of things. But what it really all comes back to is we were just looking and reading and seeing what people were talking about, what they were looking for, and then we were like, okay, let's go in that direction. So when it became an actual thing, there was a good chance that in-house was already had something in play to where it met those needs. And that's where I think back in the 2015s, 2016s, 2017s is where it just started really catching fire there, is because we just listened to what people were saying. And that's just doing research and kind of seeing where the tea leaves tell you. But also it's the we made it about everybody else. That's why all the pictures was user generated content. You send us a picture, we're putting it up, because we've never felt it was about us. And that's how we ended up with this great following with which is called the in-house army, and the tags and all that, is because that's where the real magic happens, and then seeing what they're doing, and then playing off of that. And it's like anything. It's the more homework and research you do, the better equipped you are going into any sort of venture. But and that's just always moving forward and progressing forward. And a lot of people get to see all the successes, but they don't see all the failures that it took in order to get some of these successes.
Yeah, no, I get it. But you've had some good successes. You've had a couple quality genetics kind of hit with the people.
Yeah, well, we've had some. Well, obviously the juggernaut out there is the Slurricane.
Yep.
But with that said, is you're, like I said, you're trying to give back what people are asking for and what they're looking for, and that's always been our drive behind everything.
Yeah, the Slurricane is kind of, I'll admit, that's kind of where, aside, like, you and I have never even talked before. The most I had heard about you and in-house came from Rob and Chris. They've grown. I'm north of the border, so having your genetics up here just isn't. You're definitely going to see that now more now than when I was stumbling across your name a few years ago. But the genetics speak for themselves. When the first time I ever came across in-house would have been through Slurricane. Members of my community were growing it. They absolutely love it. I often ask what's people's favorite genetics. Slurricane is still at the top of so many people's favorite genetic. What what was it that you felt that really resonated the most with people in that genetic?
The way that the way the Slurricane came about was my partner was we basically was because what it is you're constantly looking for something that's going to complement each other when you're breeding, right? So you're going to take a weakness to a strong point, right? And so obviously at the time, Dosey Dose was on fire. Same with the Platinum Punch, and so it was kind of like my partner's like, I'm going to hit fire with fire,
Mm-hmm.
and so we go through the process, harvest the seeds, send them out for testing. We also hunted them internally, and then this is like as we were harvesting, we came across the Slurricane 7, and this was cool because we had another harvest for something else, so we had the trimmers there, and so we had them just trim up the bin real quick, and then that flower, the trichome build was like amazing. It was to the point where when my partner posted it that day, the first comment was, "Look at all that PM." And so that was the first comment. So they had to get pulled down. He comes in the next day and he's complaining about being tired because he took the picture in 20 different angles, and he said every time I posted it on Instagram, the first comment was, "Look at all that PM." And it's just at that time you didn't see that kind of build and that frost, like that. And so we knew that there was something really, really magical about that, and that's the cool part about in-house is we have multiple projects going on, but we're compartmentalized where we intertwined on the majority of the stuff, but then you have you've got certain stuff going on here, you've got certain stuff going on there, and we do work as like 10 people even though we're 2 people, but we have a huge support group. But yeah, there's a couple of moments there, especially like on the Platinum Kush Breath and a few other ones where when the testing came back and we were trimming it up, we just knew that something special was going to happen. And one thing is interesting that like another popular one is a sugarcane, and it started off really slow and it went really flat, and then there was a few people back out east that had really great success with it, and it just took off. And that's what we're starting to see now is people going back to the stuff that we've created, 4 or 5 years ago and circling back to it, and then and acquiring those packs and hunting and doing great work. And you're starting to see a lot of stuff that kind of was flat, but now it's its time. And that's what we've seen over the years on a lot of stuff that we've bred, that it's just not the time for it, so there's no point in sending it out for testing or anything like that. And so it's just we've ended up with a vast catalog of stuff, and then you have some stuff that just is not compatible at all.
No, but you know what? I like the idea of people tracking back and trying to find the older because that speaks to me. That's exactly what I do. I try to go backwards rather than trying to find the latest what's hot. But I'm kind of not surprised that some things aren't right at particular times either, because I refer to this a lot. Like the very first tablets were released in like the very early '90s, and they didn't take off. People didn't understand it. It didn't meet people's needs at that particular time. And sure enough, 10, 15 years later, the tablet comes back and it's huge. It's huge. People find a need for it. It's the same thing. People just, there's so many kind of distractions right now where people are just trying different things and doing different things where it's like, oh, I might have missed something there a little while back on my travels. And you know what? That sugarcane's probably one of those ones where it's like, yes, let's get back on that, because people are taking it and running with it.
The funny story was, so this was probably 2016, I guess, 2015, and we had a pretty big, huge BHO operation going where it was more of a production style, and so a lot of the stuff that we were harvesting at the time, so it was a lot of like glues and a lot of OGs and that type, and it just wouldn't shatter up. It would just be staying saucy, right? And at the time, it was bad timing because everybody wanted the shatter. They wanted the snap, right? And So we had a bunch of these pizza boxes, and those pizza boxes started stacking up just because this stuff would not shatter for nothing, just because it's got a high terp profile, right? So we had a couple of buyers come by, and we got introduced to a new one, and he came and he took the boxes that we had to shatter, and he was happy, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna and it was like 2 days later, he called me back, and he's like, hey man, can I come back? And I'm like, yeah, sure, but we don't. I mean, you took every box that we had that shattered up, and he's like, no, I'm coming back for those other boxes. And he came back and he bought like, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 of those boxes. And he was like, this is where it's at. Nobody knows, and that's it's just the sauce. But what he was doing was obviously jarring it up and then letting it separate and then doing whatever from there. But yeah, it was, but like I said, it was just before its time. So it was the BHO running was a byproduct from what we were doing. We just needed something to do with our trim and turn it into something. It wasn't our primary business model. So if it would have been our primary business model, then we would have steered our whole grows and everything else to the strains that did shatter, and then we would have concentrated on that, and then neglected where the stuff that was saucing up that obviously and tasted a lot better at the time and all that. And BHO is pretty much ran its course. Rosin is king. Rosin will be king for the time here on out, because it's obviously it's got a lot of good attributes to it, being solventless, etc., and all that. And especially when you get into the extraction of it and the medicinal aspect of it, that's going to be the the avenue and where where we're going to get a lot of great things from. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things that now we're obviously been dabbling in hemp. We feel that hemp is the future for a lot of things. So we've been working in that. We really feel that a couple of those cannabinoids like CBG and CBD gets all the glory, but there's a few other ones in there, CBN, that are going to be extremely helpful for the body, especially when it comes to CBG and the gut and all that. And you combination with CBD that helps clean your blood, and you add a little bit of THC in there to get your full effect. And some people obviously it's coined entourage effect. That's the stuff that we're looking at. That's the stuff that we're really excited about, because what's about to more than likely happen if they pass Schedule 3, it'll be like overnight. All these studies and from Israel to the NIH and these particular set of cannabinoids, lower cholesterol, and it does this and it does that, because there's this misnomer that they haven't been studying cannabis, but you can simply go to the NIH and see since 2017, they've spent almost $2 billion studying cannabis, and $1 billion of that, more than half of that money went towards the negative effects. And we only ended up with a couple of things where, where they come with a negative effect. So the future is going to be cool. It's going to be awesome to see.
I'm glad to hear.
You lose your audio?
Nope. I'm just grabbing a bag of weed, and I don't want the crinkling of the bag to catch.
Oh.
I'm always doing all kinds of things. Sorry. Go ahead if you had something to finish.
But yeah, I mean, that's where I think the home growers are going to come and shine here in the future, because they want to, I think in a sense, is they want to eliminate the home grower or and for a number of reasons. But I can tell you right now, the issue with by suppressing the home grower is we're going to lose a lot of genetic diversity that we have, because we've already lost a lot of genetic diversity just from living under the pressure of the alphabet boys and people getting raided and having to kill off your grows because the raid was coming, etc. There's a lot of great stuff that we've lost over the years, but I think that's where the home growers shine, because they're going to be able to keep that genetic diversity going, and it's not going to go the wayside like currently like corn is and a few other commercial viable products. Like what do we have? Like 1, 2, or 3 types of varietals of corn when we used to have hundreds, and then go back farther generations, we had thousands. Yeah. And that's where I think we just, as a society, where we just kind of like get, pigeonholed into things, and they're like, they serve it to you, and there's, they make it illegal, they make it, make it a lot of things. And I think where in the Schedule 3, I think they're going to give everybody the right to, and essentially the licenses to grow as much flower as you need to sustain the market. But I think they're going to put a big, huge clamp down on the extraction process, because that's when the extraction is where the real medicinal aspect is, and when it comes to both the hemp and cannabis plant.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. You're still very optimistic or more optimistic than I am in regards to where I feel like they'll take things with legalization. Or regulation, and maybe I read too much into it. I don't see that much prosperity coming that much quickly, or that quickly in regards to any kind of regulation anytime soon.
Yeah, but I think if you're gonna, so what you do is, if you want to beat any business or any industry or anything like that, you take, like a monopoly, you take the money out of it, right? And what I mean by that is say for instance, they come and they say, hey, Pigeon OG is really great for my ADD, right? And so, well, you're a home grower, so what are you going to do? You're going to go look for that Pigeon OG because you don't really want to take your ADD medication for your whole life. And if you got something that you can grow and that you can extract and put in your diet, and it's gonna help your brain, mellow out and function, right? Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna do that, but you're gonna be able to regulate that because you're going through the process and making it. You're not beholden to a prescription. And that's where this really comes down to is the pharmaceutical lobbies in the industry, because they're scared, because as an example, every market that legalizes is a instant $1 billion loss. And that's with a B, $1 billion loss for every legalization effort in the country that's happened in the United States. So every time you see a state fall and they legalize, it's literally $1 billion hit to the pharmaceutical industry.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough.
Well, it's yeah, because the thing is if
$1 billion is like 30 days, if that. You know what I mean, in regards to income for that industry.
I think it's I think I'll have to double check it, but I think it's 4 days.
Fuck off. 4 days. Oh, forgive me for.
Yeah.
That's
wild.
To your point though, in regards to like people now, and good to you guys for exploring the new alternatives, CBN, CBG. These are some untapped cannabinoids with some really unseen, effects in regards to how they can have a positive impact on people's health suffering from a myriad of different ailments. So good for you guys for exploring that. But the thing is, for people right now, is that they're still stuck in the THC, CBD. I need 30%. I need 15%, and that we're stuck there because we're kind of at a point where that's just what the market's asking for. We're undereducated is the wrong way to put it. I just feel like we are underinformed in regards to the pure benefits that come from this plant. That's why people go in and hit a dispo and say, I need 30%, nothing over or under 30% THC.
Yeah, but I think, we've had this drive for the past decade to get the highest THC possible. And that's come at the expense of the other cannabinoids, right? Mm-hmm. Because when a plant is growing in the veg state, it's that what's actually forming in that plant is CBG, right? And then as it starts to begin the flowering stages, that CBG now starts to turn into the other cannabinoids, primarily THC and CBD are the two primary ones that begins to form. Now, we've had this mad dash to get this highest THC possible, but back in the day, like late 90s and through the 2000s, some of the most dankest weed is from that time period, and that's because it had just a nose that was unbelievable that we don't really see too much anymore. But also, you had a great like body high, and there was a lot more better attributes to it. But when you go back and you look, that was a 17% THC, right? 12% THC, low THC, other cannabinoids that were involved in that. And then we have obviously tolerances, right? So the people have higher tolerances, so they got to get, that's where it turns into this to the high THC. So if you do start puffing on something that's say 12%, 15%, you're going to have to smoke more because you're accustomed to 25, 30%. But you might actually be feeling better on it's just hard to quantify, but ultimately what I'm getting at is we've had this mad dash to this high THC, and I think that we need to kind of start pulling back and getting the other cannabinoids back into the fray.
We are.
And I think that's and my biggest fear of everything is the pharmaceutical industry taking hold, and then we end up with the synthetic style cannabis, because anytime you synthesize something in a synthetic and you put it in a human body, you have adverse reactions and severe reactions too. And I think the first actual related cannabis death will come from a synthetic cannabis or cannabinoid.
It's funny you say that. That's actually one of the conversations that we were having today in regards to was synthetic cannabinoids. And in fact, in my opinion, as humble as it is, I don't believe you can refer to these synthetic cannabinoids as cannabinoids at all. I feel like that's a huge mistake and something that I think as a community we need to avoid as a whole, because it just doesn't it doesn't jive with me that we would refer to these as cannabinoids at all, just because it's almost like a play on our community. It's almost a bit of like a manipulation, in my opinion, especially when you see these synthetic cannabinoids that start with THC and then say something. So like we were talking earlier, THCP, and people are thinking, okay, well, it must be good because it's THC, when in fact it has nothing to do with tetrahydrocannabinol at all. So
Yeah.
I think you're right in regards to the first death coming from. But if that's the case, if we're going to make that leap, the first death has already come. There was a.
And the thing is it's just an opinion. I still
That's
have
fair.
I
Yep.
still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to research and read, especially these studies that are coming out of the NIH and the impact that these cannabinoids have on our body. And there's basically that plant is real similar to the human body, right? The CB1, CB2 receptors. There's a lot that's there, and I think, but what you were just talking about a few minutes ago is it's not. I wouldn't say it's a lack of education. I think it's a lack of outlets for people to educate people. And that's
Agreed.
why I think with people like yourself and that we mentioned before is I'm really excited for you guys and look to in any way that we can to promote this, because I think you guys are going to be the vessel that is going to bring the masses the information that they need, because as this turns into a lifestyle and turns into correcting issues that people have, it's going to be the word of mouth. Hey, this helped me. And it's not going to cure all and it's not going to help everybody, but it will help the masses. And that's where I think you can't make claims that, it does this or does that. But you can't deny somebody if they're saying, hey, I had severe arthritis, but, this edible or this topical or this has really helped me and it's done wonders for me. Or I've had, these tumors shrink, etc. You can't deny that person of their story, and so if you have people that bring those stories to the surface and somebody hears that and it helps one other person, then it makes it 100, makes it totally worth it, and that's where I think where this is very important, where you guys are going to be influential in that information, because at the end of the day, this is, we've all come to learn that this is medicine. This plant is important to the body and it can do great things. It just needs to obviously continue to be studied and not exploited, and obviously not monopolized again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I like being considered a vessel, so please use that term more often. Mr. Vessel works great. Mr. Grow runs with that, so I should perhaps.
Well, think about it this way: when you first started, right? When you first turned on this camera here,
Yeah.
and you had 100 people that joined up to you, right? You were excited,
Oh, I remember.
right?
I remember the
And
first 100. Yep.
you probably still get nervous every time you turn on the camera, right? Because but anyhow, now when you look at it, I think you're in the neighborhood of 100,000 subscribers, right? That's tens of thousands of people that look forward to hearing, what you got to say. What's Pigeon going to say? What is he going to say today? There's people that every time that I've come in here, I've seen the same people that have commented, and there, you got a really solid group of people there. So when you look at that, you gotta get excited for that person, because to build up and continue grinding. I mean, there's probably been days where you're just like, man, I can't really fit in my schedule, but people are depending on me to be there, and I got to get in front of that camera, and that not every day is a good day, but for the most vast majority of our days are good days, because we're growing weed, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh,
And
I
that's
yeah, I totally 100% get what you're saying, and don't let it be mistaken. I 100% appreciate the position that I've been put in, and with the community that I have, and the effort, the comments, the work, the energy, the support that's constantly there. Because you already said it, the community is what it's all for. Without them, I am literally nothing when it comes to my online presence, and perhaps my existence as a man outside the home. But it's huge, and I totally appreciate it. And you're right. I want to double back a little bit, because you said that it's not uneducation. It's not uneducated people, and that's 100% the truth. Because if the information and the availability was there for people to just get what they need to know about this plant, people would do it. They would exercise it. But you don't see a grow your own commercial on the. You see a try Zerbamatam, shrivels your dick, gives you diarrhea for months, but let me tell you, you're gonna enjoy it. Talk to your doctor, right? You're pushed prescriptions out the wazoo before you're ever pushed anything herbal or along the lines of this plant. In fact, it's demonized and it's prohibited. So yeah, I will never blame the people for not understanding or having the tools within their abilities to try to utilize this plant to their full abilities. And that's why, that's why I appreciate guys like yourself and In-House Genetics for not just being focused on the plant, but being focused on the person too. That's huge. That's really, really big.
Because you get to meet these people, though, right?
Go ahead.
These people that follow us, that support us, are absolutely amazing people, and if you're gonna know something or learn something or something, like if you can help one person, then it's amazing, right? It's like awesome, and it can build from there, Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. No,
So
I do it all the time.
I just got excited myself,
Yeah, I get it. No, I get it. I do it all the time. I got two incredible hosts that I cut off all the time, and it's great. Shout out to the boys. So when it comes to In-House Genetics, what are you mentioned some little things you're dabbling on right now, but do you have any projects you're doing right now? Anything really exciting in the garden that has you guys motivated to come to work or go to work?
So as far as projects, usually at any given time, we got numerous projects going on. We have, I think, 3 of our rooms are full. We got some pretty cool stuff that's coming up throughout the course of the rest of the year. We're right in the beginning stages of getting a project that we put on a couple years back called the One World One Plant, and that's where we basically anybody that signed up, we gave them a free pack of seeds, and they started on New Year's, and this was a few years ago. So we and since have done some more crosses with the hunted from the One World One Plant previous, and now we got a new wave coming out. And this time, what I did was, and I'll get you on the list, but we just gave it to podcasters and these content creators, and then they can dish it out to their following and their people, you know. And it's basically it's a pack of seeds for people to encourage home growing and encourage people that might be on the fence of growing. This gives them an opportunity to kind of go through the process. And if it doesn't, if they have trouble, or if they trip and fall or whatever, it's not that big of a deal, but at least they're growing. So it's a way for us to, couple things actually. It promotes home growing, but also it promotes community, because what we saw last time, of the 350 people that participated, they started creating their own grow groups, and they have their own grow groups on social media now. And the reason and how they met was through the One World One Plant project. And it couldn't have turned out any better when we started seeing that form, because we're like, oh, this is awesome, because unintended consequences or unintended situations, so those projects and those type of projects, we love, and we love doing, and it's just because the participation from people. And then we have a big project going on in Oklahoma, and it's been quite the roller coaster, and so we just recently had somebody boot out all of our windows, and the store's not open yet. And then 2 hours later, one of the neighborhood transient fellows decided to crawl through the window and then lay on the floor and then rub one out while the police showed up.
Oh.
Yeah, I wish I was making that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. Yep. I watched a dude do that on the internet.
Yeah. So now we got we're replacing 6 windows and a door, and then waiting for the bureaucracy to final out, and then we'll be able to open the doors there in Oklahoma. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we're really excited for. But one thing I can say about with the Oklahoma situation and the dispensary is we did something really cool where we took, you're actually even have a QR code, but we took all the content creators, educators, people that all that, and we made a QR code out of a wood block, and you're hanging on a brick wall. And so we put it on a brick wall because it takes bricks to make something solid, right? So and so it's a solid foundation. And so when people come into the dispensary and they want to learn about something, or they got a question or whatever, you can go, hey, yeah, I can answer your question, but also go scan a few of these QR codes, and it takes them right to their Instagram, which will in turn, on the back of it, will put their other primary, say like their YouTube or something like that, but it has their name on it and has their information, but it's just going to be a wall of QR codes. And so it makes it really easy, because everybody's got a cell phone and a QR code reader with their camera now on their smartphone. So it makes it really easy to directly connect with people. And it was really cool to do. We have a really cool wood shop and laser and a bunch of other stuff. So it makes it pretty easy to do this. And then what we'll do when we get fully up and operational is we will make another wall that'll be just basically based around like home growers and people that interact in the community and this and that. And so that way we can keep people engaged. And so, yeah, stuff like that is really exciting to do. And we, obviously have one of the best jobs in the world. Not kidding. Even going to lie.
Yep. No kidding. You ever considered whittling canoes for blind children? Nope, that was a joke.
No,
I'm just playing.
I'm not even touching that one.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad you got that went over all of our heads. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. So, no, that's good for you guys, man. That is awesome, and I sure hope my name is on the list for all that, because I would love to participate. That sounds fantastic.
No, yours. Yes, you're. Because that's about the time when I was on a long ass drive, so I was catching up with Rob's content, and then it moved me right onto yours. And in fact, what you just referenced, I watched that interview and all that while I was on the road, and so, and then, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. That's
yeah.
That's no, that's fantastic. No, that's cool, man.
I don't know either.
I'd love to be involved with that. I love what you guys are doing, and like I said, I've heard nothing but quality things. Forget about Rob and Chris; they're easy to forget about. My community's been has been incredibly vocal about you guys, your genetics, the things you guys are doing, and yeah, as I mentioned, Rob and Chris have nothing but nice things to say with you, and in fact, we'd love to have you on from the stash because I know you already know a podcast that's with Rob
So
and Chris.
yeah, I got held up. I think it was 2 times. One time or 2 times with Rob. I was on the road, and it just wasn't. I wasn't trying to do it in an airport, and I got obviously reschedule with him and get on with him.
Yes.
But it's also
Yeah.
too, you guys have a great YouTube community within yourselves, because Matt talked highly of you. Because when I met Matt in Denver, I asked him about you, and I was like, "Oh, have you heard?" He's like, "Oh, he's a great guy," and so on and so on. So yeah, it's a bunch of people.
Team ICANN. I wouldn't say the same thing.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think
We
what it
love
is
Matt,
is-
man. I love Matt. I hung out with Matt in Vegas, and incredible dude. Honestly, there is not many people. There's a few, but there's not many people from this space that aren't easy to get along with, man. Everybody's so cool, so sweet, so genuine, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
And it's great to see that you guys shout out each other, you guys show support to each other. There's not like, where I think we have spent all this time thinking that we're in competition, and nobody's nobody in reality, nobody's in competition. And our real competition, if you want to look at it, is going to be the people that are trying to suppress and then try to steal this plant from us. And like
And
I said,
we're
the community. Yes, and
Right?
the way that we win is, and the way that the way that we don't get washed out is if you see somebody go down, make sure you share these pages and let people know like where to find them again and get them repopulated. And because I know there's people that I followed, and I'm like, their count gets taken, and it's only going to get worse because censorship will be hyperactive once we start sharing critical information. So like right now, you're not a threat. But if you start sharing critical information, or you really get people, going, "Hey, I'm kind of sick and tired of this shit," they'll start really censoring you. And like we've given up on Instagram in a sense that the account is always shadow banned. It doesn't pop up. It stays right at the amount of people that follows it. Like somehow I'll get in a 1 month period, I'll get 1,200 followers, and somehow I get 1,200 people that unfollowed. So you're just like, and it's been like that for the past like year. So the same amount of followers is what I lose, but they always flag every post that I do that it can't be recommended to non-followers. And the way that I've been able to kind of combat that is the share button, and that's where I think, that's a gauge too. When people share your content and they engage with it, that means that what you're saying is resonating with them, and you have to, do your best to make sure you get the proper information and that you're factual about it. And, like there's been stuff where I've been wrong and I've had to come back and, and rethink and all that. But I do know, like, if I'm going to say something, I'm going to know something about it,
Yeah, 100%. We have to get into being wrong more. I'm not familiar with that. If you could explain. No, I'm just playing. Brandon, incredible a conversation, man. I seriously, I got to thank you for coming and hanging out with me tonight, and particularly on such short notice. Absolutely legendary, man. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you in particular, or wanted to hit up some genetics, where could they get a hold of you?
So this is really important, you guys. In-house is 100% vendor. So if you see an account that has our logo and they're trying to sell you something, it's fake. It's not real. Don't fall for it. Okay. But yeah, on all the major social medias, obviously Instagram. You mentioned earlier that you weren't sure whether to call it Twitter or X, so I just call it Twix.
Twix.
Right. So yeah. So you can find us on Twix. But yeah. Anyhow, it's just very important. We won't ask you for anything. We won't send you any lists through social media or anything like that. And a lot of times is by hitting our social media, then you'll be able to get an email or a contact and all that. And if you're looking for something, and because I mean, you've seen how it was kind of difficult for you to kind of initially punch through and push through, but we do read these messages, you guys. And I also urge this: just because you didn't get a response after a day or two, always resend your messages because it recycle back in, and sometimes on social media they don't give us all our messages in the way that they came. So don't ever think you're being ignored. We do read these messages. We do try to get back to as many people as possible, and if you're not getting back to, you keep hitting us up because we will get back to you at some point.
Yeah, 100%. Instagram is one of the hardest. Like that just goes to, it should be a testament of how difficult it is to get a hold of people. If I struggled to get a hold of you, and or you struggle to get a hold of me, you know what I mean? Yet anyone who's anyone struggled, because I wanted to get a hold of you and you wanted to get, yet it's difficult. So, and forget about the requested messages. Like Instagram is horrible for messaging. I don't know why in anyone's world that's where people mainly communicate, but that's why I like Twitter. It's literally so easy. Or Twix, it's so easy to get a hold of me. You just at me, put my name in your tweet, and I can read it. Dong, you got me. It's there. So easy.
It's tough too, though, because it's a lot of traffic. But I want to actually mention this before we get off. Is since you guys all do know each other and have mad respect for each other, I do think that you guys should at some point open the conversation and let's look at creating an app where you can put this content all in one local place. I know you got to get away from the Instagram type of platforms and this and that, but you can have an app where it's more of a base of a lifestyle where people can have it on their phone and it'd be fine in case it's not like weed this or weed that. But what I'm getting at is I've mentioned it before, the idea before, but if we could come together and as a community and start putting an app lifestyle type of situation together, then we don't have to worry about the censorship and be at the mercy of the YouTubes and all that. And also, Matt disagreed with me, but I was like, you should start putting a lot of your content as backup over onto Rumble, and so that way, if you can start steering people that way, so you don't lose your content because YouTube decides one day that they don't like what you said.
Yes.
And I can tell you, if they start seeing a huge population head in a direction, they're going to take notice of that, and then they're not going to get rid of the restrictions, but they'll lessen it a little bit. Because it's just like if you take your viewership, because think of it this way, your eyes are dollar signs to them. So if your eyes are going somewhere else, guess what? They're going to be like, oh, okay, we see a shift here. We need to pull the brakes a little bit and not be so hard on this community. I mean, we so much as say the wrong thing, they'll take you down or demonetize your video.
Here's the thing though, and like I would consider myself an optimist. I like to see the brighter side of everything. However, and I'm not thinking it's not possible, but the idea of an app sheerly focused on weed in the community is tough, man, because running something like that is remarkably difficult. B, it's expensive, right? Who's paying for that? But C, it's like YouTube doesn't give a smack. Google doesn't give a smack. Take every stoner there is in the population and weed them out of the conversation of YouTube and Google, and you probably still don't scratch the surface of like the thinnest pocketbook. And I just, in my opinion, we need to use these platforms as to the most and to the edge of their elements or the edge of their guidelines, and make it aware. YouTube doesn't want this content. They've made it very clear. And even though they try to capitalize on it, they've tried very hard to restrict it. So I think I'm going to take my content and push it to the masses as hard as I can. I'm still trying to convince as many people to grow today with a larger audience than I was back when I was smaller, getting lesser views, but yet still showing people how to grow. You put a plant on YouTube today and you're getting age restricted. Yet I can tell someone till I'm blue in the face how to get this done through figurative dance, and it gets through.
Yeah. I guess I agree to you with a point, but I mean, in an extreme case where they were censoring Joe Rogan before he left to Spotify, right? and then a lot of other people that were below him in that type of group and that type of content, right? And then Spotify came through and they pushed a lot of stuff over there, and it was like night and day. They lifted a lot of the restrictions off of those contents and those videos. And then what I'm seeing is the the traditional media aspect of everything is dead in the water. Nobody's going to watching TV for their information or anything like that. They're getting it from this. But I think to your point is, yes, it would be a huge undertaking. But I think where other people have failed before is it's turned into like an open air market, and that's where I think where that begins is the downfall of that, where it was more about the plant and aspects and how you can extract and what you can get out of the plant and help you in the process. I think that's where that type of information and that type of route is where it'll ultimately find a lot of success. And so what you're doing is you're setting the bar for somebody that is well funded, like a Google or one of those type of things, to go, well, we're going to pick this up because it does have tens of millions of people worldwide. That's the thing is this is a global situation. This is like when you probably factor in and you start taking it, and it's like even if it's 1% of the population, you're 70 million people, right? That's not something to necessarily, bat an eye at, and but yeah, that's it's just an idea, but also it's still going to be regardless fun to watch you guys grow though and continue to grow. Have you ever went back and watched your first video?
Yeah. Nervous, scared, afraid. Yeah, I remember. I was quiet too. I was very quiet.
I still get nervous every time I get in front of the screen and talk. I don't know if it'll ever go away. It's a combination of nervous, excitement. Really enjoy the basically the feedback you get from people. I mean, even the people that hate you. I've had people tell me like, I hate you as an individual, but I really respect what you're doing. I was like, hey, that's all I can ask for. Right?
Yeah. You know what? I've heard this. I've heard similar things, not in such nice words, but yes, I've heard similar things. You know what? I do agree with you. I do believe that there is something out there for us, whether it's an app, whether it's a forum, whether it's a Discord server, whether it's I don't know what it is, but there is something. There is something out there where we should celebrate our own. We should make the people that we want to make. We should highlight the things we want to highlight. Not leave
I will
it to
say
the
this
masses.
though. I will say this is I come from a time when we would get on a search engine and we would ask Jeeves a question and come back with a partial thing, and then that went to Yahoo, right? And Guess what? While those were a king and at the top of the game, there was two guys building Google. So who in the hell is who's building Google right now?
Yep.
Right? That's
Google
my
2.0.
question.
Nope,
right?
Right.
So yeah, so this is getting a lot easier with the AI and all the other stuff. So look, humans are amazing people, and anything you put your mind to, you're going to be able to accomplish crazy stuff. And it's just more planting seeds out there for people, because if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else. And then if they got the idea from us just bullshitting, even better. More power to you.
Totally agree. Hell of a conversation, Brandon. I feel like we could keep going, man. Starting to find ourselves in.
Oh, we could, yeah.
That was wicked.
But, yeah, I really appreciate the time.
It was an absolute pleasure, brother. I'll get Rob to hook up with you from the stash, and I would love to dive into the genetics. Rob, I know, or Rob and Chris would love to rack your brain in regards to the plant itself. I just like to sit and see where you are in regards to the plan, the garden, the plant, and everything in between, man. So, Brandon, thank you very much for meeting with us. On behalf of myself and the flock, I encourage, excuse me as I die, I encourage everyone to go check out Brandon and In-House Genetics. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I stand by what you guys are saying, and I think you guys have yourself a solid set of kahunas when it comes to the genetics game. So, Brandon, hats off, brother.
Hey, I appreciate the time, you guys. Thanks, and everybody keeping the chat live too. You guys have a good night.
They're the real ones. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Wow. Shout out to In-House Genetics. Shout out to Brandon. Thank you so much. You know what, it's okay. The in-house, it's supposed to look this way, so it looks a little more cinematic. But shout out to Mrs. P for being like, no, camera's over here, so I have to look over here. Huge shout out to Brandon. Seriously, huge shout out to In-House Genetics. I see my necklace is a little messed up here. That was a wicked conversation, man, and I seriously just want to give a shout out to In-House Genetics, to their team, to everything they got growing on, because as I've mentioned, I hear nothing but great things from the community and from the people that I'm the closest associated with. So huge shout out. They've got my support. Huge shout out to In-House Genetics.